So there's this famous quote from My Fair Lady where the Professor Henry Higgins appears to be buying um, Eliza Doolittle from the, from her dad. Or that's what her father thinks, Alfred Doolittle, and so Henry Higgins is appalled that he thinks that the dad thinks that he's trying to buy his daughter, and he says, "Where are your morals, man?"
Mm-hmm.
And he says, "Can't afford them, Governor." And so I wonder whether, given the financial troubles of the journalism business right now, is ethics becoming something that we can't afford, and does that sort of explain a scandal like the Staples Center scandal, or that ethics become more important than ever in a period of financial difficulty?
Yeah, well, in the book, and I try to have thought about this, and I did that. A lot of papers say, well, we're too small to pay our own way if we're going to have travel stories, and so if we simply disclose that this story about a vacation in Bahamas was written by a reporter who's had free airline ticket and free lodging and meals and entertainment is sufficient. And I argue that if you can't afford it, just don't do it. That maybe AP or another wire service has travel stories. It's not done by your own people, but if you feel you need to do travel stories and you can't afford to do them right, then go get them from somebody who does it right. And so I think that the disclosure doesn't of the conflict doesn't resolve the problem when the conflict is avoidable. And so I mentioned a number of cases in the chapter in the book about the business of producing journalism, how expensive it is, and how the news organization, whether it's a television station, a newspaper, a radio station, or a website, has to make a profit in order to, and that creates conflicts for the organization. The business side is to try to keep the advertising function and business function away from the news coverage, which I think is a principle that the public pretty well understands. I mean, some of the nuances of our business they misunderstand, but I think that that advertisers should not influence the news. They understand that the editorial should be on the editorial page and not in the news columns. They understand. So I think that what I pointed out is a number of cases where I think that they have either gone over the line or are very close. And an example of that, where the Inquirer publisher asked the governor to set up a meeting with the state retirement fund to see if they would lend the money, the Inquirer some money. And they had the meeting. They didn't get the money. It turned out not the kind of investment that the agency would make. But ethicists had trouble with the publisher's decision to ask for that. And the publisher said, "You mean that of all the businesses in the state of Pennsylvania, only newspapers are prevented from doing this?" And the answer is yes, or maybe radio and television station too. Anybody who is trying to cover an agency can't afford to take money from the agency. And unfortunately, that in some areas, that does put the news organization at a disadvantage with other businesses in town. But in my opinion, so be it. That's the nature of our business.